Then Sports Center, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 11 matchup between the Ole Miss Rebels and the Georgia Bulldogs. Two of your top teams in the SEC going head-to-head in Week 11. You got Ole Miss 8-1 on the season. This team you could definitely consider as one of the big dark horses of the conference this season. They're taking on Georgia, one of the top powers in the country. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with your team trends. Ole Miss beat Texas A&M 38-35 last week. Nice win for the Rebels, 8-1 on the season, 5-1 overall. I mean, this is a top 10 team, but I feel like Ole Miss is definitely a bit overlooked. I mean, they're kind of similar to like a Penn State in the Big Ten right now, where you got two top powers in the conference. Like for the SEC, it's Georgia and Alabama. And compared to the Big Ten, it's like Michigan and Ohio State. But Ole Miss should not be overlooked. This is a talented team that is the third best team in the SEC this season. Definitely in that top three, and they're dangerous at this point in the season. Georgia on the other side beat Mizzou 30-21. Mizzou gave Georgia some problems, but Bulldogs found a way in the end, 9-0 on the season, 6-0 overall. They are number one in the AP poll for this week, as they have been the entire season. We'll see what happens tonight in the college football playoff rankings if they jump back to number one over Ohio State. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see what happens here tonight. Games will be on Saturday, the 11th, in Athens, Georgia. Bulldogs, the home team, and 7 p.m. Eastern is your kickoff. Spreads going Georgia by 11.5, over/under 58.5, and the FPI is also going on the Georgia side 70%. Series history, Georgia leads at 32-12. We've seen a pretty dominant series by Georgia. Ole Miss did win the last matchup, in which, I mean, this is a matchup we really don't see too often. The last game was in 2016, so it's been a while since we last saw these two teams play each other. But overall, if you look at the entire series, Georgia has been more dominant in the last five. Georgia's won 4 of 5. Your stat comparison, Ole Miss 18th in points per game this season, 50th in points allowed, 37th in pass yards a game, 24th in rush yards. This is a strong team offensively here in Ole Miss. Defensively, they have allowed a lot of points this season. They are 50th in points allowed, and I mean, they've shown potential at times. They've found a way in every game, and that's typically involved the offense playing really well and the defense just barely doing what they need to. But because of that, this team hasn't been super dominant, and I think that's a big reason why this team hasn't gotten as much attention, especially with them losing to Alabama earlier on. But pass defense 73rd, and then 58th in the rush defense. So the pass defense is maybe one of the weaker spots for this Ole Miss team. As for Georgia, 9th in points per game, 8th in points allowed. This is a well-balanced football team in Georgia. They are 8th in passers a game, 46th in rush yards. Carson Beck has been playing better and better as the weeks go on, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on. In fact, you look at Jackson Dart and Carson Beck, both quarterbacks are really similar statistically. Both have 16 touchdowns, both have 4 picks, and kind of approaching 3,000 yards of passing on the season, and they'll get there eventually. But for Georgia, 46th in rush yards a game, and then for pass defense, 18th, rush defense, 12th. I feel like for Georgia, they consider the past few years, I mean, especially the last two, and especially 2021, this has been a brutal team defensively. This team defensively hasn't been quite as dominant this season, though, which is slightly surprising considering the talent that they have. In fact, it's been offensively where this team has taken a step forward. But I mean, also, I feel like the SEC this season is filled with better offenses than usual. I mean, the SEC is usually a pretty defensive conference, but this season, a lot of really good offenses in the conference, so it makes sense. But either way, I feel like if you consider the past few years for Georgia, this is probably the most balanced team of the past 3 years, even though they maybe don't have a more dominant part. But your recent matchups, Ole Miss beat Texas A&M by 3, beat Vanderbilt 33-7, and then close wins over Auburn, Arkansas, and LSU, all of which were huge wins for this team. Georgia on the other side beat Mizzou 30-21, beat Florida 43-20, a couple of nice wins the past couple of weeks, and then beat Vanderbilt 37-20, beat Kentucky 51-13, and also took care of Auburn 27-20. So, and that's been a common theme for Georgia as well. They've had a lot of games that shouldn't. I mean, this team hasn't been super dominant this season, even against teams that you would expect them to be, considering they've been ranked as the top team in the country for the majority of the season. But in the games that really have mattered, this team has played well. Your key points, Ole Miss 8-1 Rebels play close games. This team, that's been common throughout the entire season, but they've found a way in every game except for the Alabama one. Offensively, this team is talented enough. You look at Jackson Dart and Judkins. This is a talented team. The receiving core, everything. It's just defensively, can this team be more dominant? And going up against a Georgia team that it's going to be tough to score a lot of points offensively on. That is a slight concern because even Georgia's offense this season has been, you could argue, better than in years past, the past couple of years. So, that's going to be something that is up for question in this matchup. But you consider both teams as well. Georgia very much in the college football playoff and national picture right now. And for Ole Miss, having lost a game this season and Alabama down the stretch, their last 3 games are all very winnable. So at this point, doesn't look like Ole Miss has much of a chance to, even if they do win this game, it's going to be tough for them to get to the SEC title game and have a chance at the college football playoff. But they still got a chance to make it to a New Year's Six game, and I think that's the main goal for this team at this point. And that is, if they can win this matchup, that puts them very significantly into that conversation. But for Georgia, this is a balanced team that's got experience, and they know how to win. That's the true thing about this Georgia team. And I think we thought heading into this season that it would be the defense once again that really came through, and offensively, maybe it wouldn't be quite as good, but it's honestly been the total opposite. This offense has been really incredible for the majority of the season, and that's been huge for this team. And defensively, I feel like down the stretch here, because Georgia's got some big games down the stretch. You consider this matchup, you consider Tennessee next week on the road. That is, I'd say, definitely the most dangerous game remaining on this schedule. This is time for Georgia to prove that they still are for real. And I feel like if they can find a way to be dominant, have a couple of really nice wins the next couple of weeks, it's going to be tough to stop this team from winning their 3rd straight national title this season. That is definitely in the question right now for Georgia. But this team tends to play well in the toughest games, so we'll see if that comes to light. And this team's got the home field advantage, and obviously biggest test to date. So with that, let's get the prediction here for Ole Miss and Georgia coming up here in week 11 of action. In the end, I'm going with the home team and the favorite. Georgia's going to win at 35-27. I think Ole Miss is going to keep this game close, though. This team is good enough offensively, and they've got enough experience offensively to the point where I do think they find a way to keep it close. But I just don't know that they can score enough to beat Georgia. And also, Georgia's offense being as good as it has been in the biggest games this season, that is going to be, I think, a challenge for Ole Miss. But I think a huge key to this game, something that Georgia has shown to be a bit vulnerable in, is starting a bit slow. I feel like for Ole Miss, they can force a big turnover or even 2 turnovers early in this matchup and find a way to keep it close for a while. Maybe even build an early lead. That's going to be how the Rebels win this matchup. But I'm going to say 60% towards Georgia. Over-under is 58.5. I'm taking the over, and Ole Miss to cover the spread in the end. But with that, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup, your score predictions, all of that. Let me know in the comments, and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.